Welcome to today's devotional message from Trusting God Always. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still, silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's begin, and let His Word breathe new life into yours. You sit by the window. The world outside hums with activity, a distant symphony of lives moving forward, plans unfolding, prayers seemingly answered. But inside you, there's a profound stillness, a silence that feels heavier than it should. You've been here before. Maybe not this exact physical spot, but deep within this feeling. The feeling of waiting. The ache of unmet expectation that gnaws at your soul. The quiet, insidious fear that maybe, just maybe, God isn't hearing you anymore. Or worse, that He doesn't care about this specific, pressing need that weighs on your heart like a stone. You've poured out your soul in prayer, night after night, perhaps cried tears you hoped no one else would ever see. You've wrestled with the promises you know are true, the ones whispered into your spirit in moments of vibrant faith, the ones you read in your Bible with a believing heart. He is near the brokenhearted. He works all things for good for those who love Him. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. These verses, once anchors, now feel like distant echoes in this quiet, heavy room of waiting. They are the song of a land you remember, but cannot currently reach. You look at the clock, marking the slow passage of time. You look at the calendar, filled with empty squares where milestones were supposed to be. You look at the life you imagined unfolding by now, the picture held so carefully in your mind. And the silence of God in this moment feels like a loud, deafening no, or perhaps, even more confusing, a complete absence of response, like a voice swallowed by the wilderness. Maybe you've asked Him out loud into the quiet air or in the hidden, desperate spaces of your mind. Lord, are you there? Do you see this struggle? Do you care that I'm hurting, that I'm stuck, that I don't know what step to take next? Is my prayer just hitting the ceiling? The silence doesn't offer an easy answer, and the waiting stretches before you like an endless road, a fog-laden valley floor. This isn't the vibrant, active faith you envisioned, the mountain-moving kind. This feels like limbo, like being forgotten in the hallway, outside the room where life is happening for everyone else. Your oil lamp feels low, and the darkness seems to press in. But even in this quiet, heavy space, a tiny, persistent spark of hope flickers within you. Fragile as a mustard seed, yet refusing to be extinguished. It's the memory of His faithfulness in the past, the truth of His unwavering character etched into your soul, however faintly the lines appear today. It's the stubborn awareness that you wouldn't be wrestling like this, wouldn't be asking these hard questions of the silence, if you didn't believe He was real, if you didn't believe He held the answers. The very struggle is a testament to a faith that hasn't fully died. This moment of waiting, this season of silence, is not the end of your story. It's a chapter, yes, a difficult one that tests your resolve like a storm tests a ship, but one that God is still writing with purpose you cannot yet see. He is not absent. He is not indifferent. He is working in the stillness, shaping you in ways that noise and activity could never achieve. This message, this exploration of what God is doing in the waiting, in the silence, is for you. It's for the heart that feels forgotten, for the soul that is weary from the journey, for the faith that is being tested and refined in the crucible of time. He is nearer than you think, and his silence does not mean his absence. Sometimes his presence is found not in the thunder, but in the still, small voice that requires quiet to be heard. It's time to listen differently. Welcome to today's devotional message from Trusting God Always. There are moments in life that feel suspended in time, aren't there? You find yourself in the quiet ache of a space between where you are and where you believe you're supposed to be. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still, silence. The answer you longed for hasn't arrived. The door you knocked on hasn't opened. The healing you sought hasn't manifested in the way you expected. It's a silence that presses in, sometimes whispering doubt, sometimes echoing past disappointments. You might feel like the lone figure standing at the edge of a vast, empty desert, the promised land shimmering faintly in the distance, but seemingly unreachable. Or perhaps you are like the disciples in the storm-tossed boat, the waves crashing over the sides, and Jesus asleep in the stern. Your heart cries out, "Master, do you not care that we are perishing?" This feeling of being unheard, unseen, or simply stuck is not a sign of God's absence. Often, it is a sign of His deep, profound explanation. Thank you for listening. Unfolding work. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed, a gentle reminder that even in the silence, even in the waiting, even when the path ahead is shrouded in mist, God is present. He is active. He is sovereign. Your prayers are not lost on the wind. They are held in the palm of the one who knows the desires of your heart before you even voice them. Trusting God always isn't about having all the answers or seeing the whole picture. It's about trusting the character of the one who holds the future. It's about finding peace in the process, even when the process is painful or prolonged. It's about understanding that His plan is not merely about reaching a destination, but about the transformation that happens along the way, in the wilderness wanderings and the hidden valleys. It's learning that sometimes the greatest strength is found not in striving, but in yielding, in the quiet act of letting go and letting God. The seed must die in the earth before it can push through the soil and reach for the sun. Perhaps your current season of waiting is that necessary burial, preparing you for unprecedented growth. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are not delayed. You are being developed. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort and encouragement on their journey of faith. And as we delve deeper into what it means to truly trust Him in every season, comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's hold on to His promises together. Let's begin, and let His word breathe new life into yours. You check your phone again, refreshing the screen, hoping for that email, that call, that message that changes everything. The small rectangle of glass holds immense power over your emotional state in this moment. With every passing minute, that confirmation doesn't appear, that opportunity doesn't materialize, that silence persists, you feel the internal pressure mounting. Society's constant hum reinforces this feeling. It whispers, sometimes shouts, insidious phrases like "time is money," urging you to move faster, to achieve sooner. It tells you to strike while the iron's hot, demanding immediate action, fearing missed chances. Don't delay, the world insists, framing patience not as a virtue, but a weakness, a potential failure. Your own heart joins the chorus, albeit with a different rhythm. It screams, "Fix this now," desperate for resolution. It pleads, "Move forward," weary of stagnation. It cries out, "I can't bear this uncertainty any longer," longing for the sweet relief of knowing, of seeing, of arriving. This isn't just simple impatience, a childish foot-stomping demanding instant gratification. It is a deeply ingrained human desire for control, for predictability, for relief from discomfort. We are wired, it seems, to measure life in tangible markers: deadlines met, appointments kept, expected outcomes achieved. We draw lines in the sand of time, setting our own personal calendars and anticipating events according to our schedule. When God's timeline doesn't align with ours, which is, more often than not, the reality of the walk of faith, it feels jarring. It feels like a disruption to our carefully constructed plans, a frustrating delay that holds us back, or even a painful denial of our earnest requests. And in these moments of perceived delay, the human tendency to look around intensifies. We see others receiving their blessings, achieving their milestones, stepping into their next chapters, promotions, marriages, healings, breakthroughs, and a whisper of "why not me" creeps in. It's a subtle, sometimes even subconscious, form of comparison that further fuels the fire of our urgency. This burning urgency, this internal clock ticking louder and louder, reveals a profound truth about our perspective. We operate with a finite view. We see the now, the immediate future, and the soon, the horizon we can almost touch. Our vision is limited by the boundaries of our own lives, our own needs, our own understanding. We are like someone trying to understand the vastness of the ocean by looking only at a single wave crashing on the shore. In stark contrast, God sees eternity. He sees the intricate tapestry of His plan unfolding, not just in your life, but across generations. He sees how your current waiting season connects to something larger, how your perceived delay is essential for someone else's future breakthrough, how the skills and resilience you gain in this unexpected wilderness are precisely what you will need for the mountain you are destined to climb. He is orchestrating events across time and space, weaving together countless lives and circumstances according to His perfect wisdom and purpose. Recognizing this difference in perspective, the vast chasm between our frantic ticking clocks and His eternal, purposeful wisdom, is the first and most crucial step in finding peace in the waiting. It calls us to a quiet, radical acknowledgement. While our urgency is real, a valid expression of our human limitations and desires, His timing is perfect. It is precise. It is sovereign. It is working all things for good, even when it feels agonizingly slow. Even when it feels like the answer will never come. Surrendering your timeline doesn't mean abandoning hope. It means anchoring your hope not to a date on a calendar, but to the character of the unchanging God. It means exchanging the heavy burden of "fix this now" for the light yoke of "trust Him always." This waiting is not empty. It is pregnant with divine possibility. We have journeyed together, acknowledging the ache of silence, the weight of our timelines, the whisper of comparison. We've wrestled with the human desire for control and glimpsed just for a moment, the grandeur of God's eternal perspective. The truth isn't always easy to embrace. Sometimes the spiritual insight feels like a cool balm on a raw wound. But this is the walk of faith, not seeing the destination, but trusting the guide. It's not about conquering fear with brute strength, but allowing perfect love to cast it out, piece by piece, doubt by doubt. This journey of trusting God always is marked by quiet moments of surrender, small victories over impatience, and profound revelations in the unexpected detours. It's learning to find nourishment in the wilderness, to see miracles in the mundane, to hear God's whisper in the loudest storms and the deepest silence. The timeless truth that anchors our souls through every shifting season is this: God's faithfulness is not conditional on our understanding or our timeline. It simply is. It is the bedrock beneath the shifting sands of circumstance. Walking in trust, not sight, means choosing to believe in His goodness and His promises, even when the evidence in the visible world seems to contradict them. It's like walking by the light of a single oil lamp through a dark, winding path. You can only see the next step, but you keep walking because you trust the one holding the lamp. These hidden seasons, these times of waiting and uncertainty that feel so unproductive, are in fact holy ground. They are where resilience is forged, where faith is purified, where our deepest reliance on God takes root. They are not wasted chapters, but essential plot points where God turns your ordinary life, with all its messiness and delays, into a holy story. He is the master weaver, and every thread, even the tangled ones, serves a purpose in His grand design. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep yielding. The story is still being written, and the author is faithful. They didn't see the end, but they trusted the author, and that was enough. Imagine another night, long ago, not your quiet bedroom silence, but the vast, open dark of a desert plain. The air is cool, carrying only the whisper of sand and the distant call of a creature. An old man stands outside his tent, his gaze fixed upwards. This is Abraham. God had spoken to him, a promise echoing under this same sky. Descendants as numerous as the stars scattered across the inky canvas above. A great nation, a promised land. He stands there, year after year. The desert nights blur into seasons, seasons into a decade, then another. His wife, Sarah, grows older alongside him. Her barrenness, once a quiet sorrow, becomes a shouting impossibility. He looks up at the stars again, each one a tiny pinprick of hope, perhaps, or maybe a reminder of the promise that feels less like destiny and more like a cruel cosmic joke. How can this be? He's old. Sarah is beyond childbearing years. The promise feels impossibly distant, maybe even foolishly believed in the harsh light of their reality. He knows the temptation to fix it himself. He's already tried that path, taking matters into his own hands, leading to complications, pain, and a lineage born of human striving, not divine promise. But God called him back to the beginning, back to simple faith, not complex theology, not a detailed blueprint of how it would happen, but just this: believe. Abraham chose to trust. He looked at his own body, worn by time. He looked at Sarah's, unable to conceive. Every physical fact screamed impossible. Yet, he chose to look past the circumstance, past the undeniable evidence of his senses, and fix his gaze on the one who made the promise. He chose to rely on the character of the promise maker, even when the path to fulfillment seemed utterly blocked. His faith wasn't a naive optimism, pretending away the difficulty. It was a gritty, determined choice to anchor his soul to God's word when his world offered contrary evidence. It was a quiet, stubborn yes in the face of a resounding no from his circumstances. This scene reminds us that faith often operates in that fragile gap between the promise and its fulfillment. In that seemingly impossible space where God asks us to trust His word more than our present reality. It's in the barren places, under the weight of years of waiting, when hope feels like a distant galaxy, that God calls us to simple trust. Maybe you are standing under your own star-filled sky tonight, looking up at an impossible situation. A mountain that won't move, a valley that seems endless, a brokenness that won't heal. Are you willing, like Abraham, to look up and choose to believe the one who not only made the stars, but hung them in their place by the power of His word? Can you trust that the same power that spoke galaxies into existence can speak life into your impossible circumstance? He is young, favored, dreaming of greatness, a tapestry of vibrant color on his back. He speaks of sun and moon bowing down, of brothers serving him. Then, the earth opens not beneath his feet, but at the hands of his own kin. Thrown into a pit, dark and forgotten, he is stripped of his coat, his status, his very freedom. Sold into slavery, dragged across sun-baked lands, ending up in a foreign house where loyalty is repaid with lies and an unjust prison cell. Years bleed into each other behind stone walls. The dreams he held, the promises God seemed to make, echo like faded whispers in the silence. His reality is chains, isolation, the bitter taste of betrayal and disappointment. Where is God in this story? Where is the one who gave the dreams? Yet, Scripture breathes a truth that defies the despair. Genesis whispers, "The Lord was with Joseph." Think on that. Not when he stood in the gleaming palace, robes flowing, power in his hands. No, the Lord was with Joseph in the pit. The Lord was with Joseph as a slave. The Lord was with Joseph in the cold, unforgiving prison. God was actively working, not just to rescue him from the pit, but to prepare him in the pit. This waiting, this season of darkness and injustice, wasn't wasted time. It was preparation time. It stripped away the youthful arrogance woven into his dreams, the naivete of privilege. It taught him dependence on a God who sees in the dark, resilience forged in hardship, wisdom honed through suffering. Maybe your waiting place feels like a pit right now, dark, lonely, unfair, a place where dreams seem buried under layers of disappointment. You might feel forgotten, sidelined, wondering if God's promises were just youthful fancies. But what if this deep valley isn't punishment, but pruning? What if this season of obscurity is God's training ground, a necessary stop on the way to the promise? He uses the very circumstances meant to break you to build you stronger, wiser, more dependent on Him alone. The lack of human control teaches divine surrender. The stripping away of what you thought you needed reveals who God is for you. Can you trust that the Lord is with you even in this pit, even when the dreams seem distant and the reality is harsh? Can you believe that He is using this season, this very moment of perceived setback, to equip you for what's ahead? The waiting isn't a pause in God's plan. It is part of the plan. His presence isn't conditional on your comfort or success. He was with Joseph in the chains, preparing him for the crown. He is with you in your struggle, preparing you for your purpose. Surrender the need to understand the timeline and lean into the promise of His presence in the waiting. This pit might be uncomfortable, but it is not empty of God. It is filled with His quiet, transformative work. The days blend together. The sun rises, the sun sets, marking time you feel isn't moving forward. You're tending the same flocks in the same barren landscape, perhaps not of sand and rock, but of routine and unanswered prayer. 40 years felt like an eternity for Moses in the wilderness. 40 years after the rush of youth, the power of privilege, the fire of righteous anger that led to flight. He went from the palace halls to the backside of the desert, from leading an army to leading sheep. 40 years of quiet, of dust, of the relentless sun beating down. What was God doing during that seemingly lost time? He wasn't punishing Moses. He was preparing him, stripping away the arrogance forged in Pharaoh's court, replacing royal impatience with the shepherd's patience. The wilderness wasn't a punishment. It was the classroom. It wasn't a detour. It was the direct path to divine dependence. In the silence, Moses learned to listen. Tending sheep, he learned compassion and responsibility for a flock far less compliant than rams and ewes. He lost the identity of an Egyptian prince to gain the identity of God's chosen vessel. This season of obscurity, this felt forgottenness, was the crucible that would forge the man who would stand before Pharaoh and lead millions through the impossible. Perhaps your wilderness is right now. A job that feels beneath you, a calling delayed, a season of singleness you didn't expect, a health challenge that keeps you sidelined, a dream that feels like it's died in the desert sand. You see others moving forward, reaching their promised lands, while you just keep tending your small flock in the middle of nowhere. This quiet, hidden season, the waiting place, feels like stagnation, like God has forgotten your address. But what if this isn't lost time? What if the lack of fanfare, the absence of visible progress, is exactly where God is doing His most profound work? He might be stripping away the identities you thought defined you, teaching you a humility and dependence the palace of success could never teach. He might be cultivating resilience in the heat, patience in the waiting, and a deep, unwavering reliance on Him alone. Could this seemingly barren landscape be the very ground where God intends to meet you, just as He met Moses at the burning bush after those long decades? The fire didn't appear in Egypt's courts. It appeared in the wilderness, to the shepherd, after 40 years of quiet formation. Your greatest encounter with God, your clearest vision of His purpose, might be waiting for you not in the hustle, but in the stillness you currently inhabit. Don't despise the waiting. Don't discount the quiet. God is not absent. He is at work, forging the man or woman you need to be for the monumental task He has prepared. Lean into the quiet. Trust the process, even when you don't understand it. He is in the waiting, and He is preparing you. You feel it, don't you? The tight knot in your stomach, the gnawing uncertainty that whispers like the wind through a cavern. You're waiting, waiting for a breakthrough, waiting for a word, waiting for the pressure to ease. And the waiting place feels dark, enclosed, maybe even dangerous. It feels like a cave. You're holding on to a promise, a dream planted in your heart, a word spoken over your life, maybe even a divine assurance. but your present reality looks nothing like it. It's fear, instead of faith, that seems to echo off the walls. It's scarcity where there should be abundance. It's hiding when you were meant to shine. Remember David? A shepherd boy, anointed king, handpicked by God for greatness. The scent of the holy oil still fresh, perhaps the vision of the throne clear in his young mind. But the path God laid out wasn't a red carpet to the palace. It was a long, arduous journey into the wilderness, into literal caves. He wasn't leading armies from a throne. He was leading a band of misfits, the indebted, the distressed, the discontented, from the shadows of places like the cave of Adullam. Years slipped by, marked not by royal decrees, but by near captures, narrow escapes, and the constant, relentless pursuit of a jealous King Saul. From these dark, damp spaces, David poured out his heart in psalms, psalms that rawly admit his desperation. Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I call to you when my heart is faint. Psalm 61, 1-2. But even in the depths, trust was his anchor. When my spirit faints within me, it is you who know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. You are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Psalm 142, 3, 5. He had the promise of the throne, a future already declared by God, but his reality was fear, uncertainty, hardship. His throne was a rock, his palace a cave mouth. This waiting in the cave wasn't wasted time. It wasn't a detour God forgot about. It was the crucible. The waiting didn't just happen to him. It happened for him. It shaped him. It tested his loyalty, proving he wouldn't take matters into his own hands even when given the chance, cutting off a corner of Saul's robe, but sparing his life. It taught him profound reliance on God in the face of constant existential threat. Every day required a fresh dose of faith just to survive, and in that unconventional leadership school in the wilderness, leading men who had nothing else to lose, his unique leadership skills were honed. He wasn't just waiting for the throne. He was being shaped into the king God intended him to be during that time. A king who knew desperation, who knew reliance, who knew what it meant to hide under the shadow of God's wings because there was nowhere else safe to go. Your cave of waiting might feel just as isolating, just as dangerous. It might feel like the place where the promise God gave you seems furthest away, a cruel taunt in the darkness. Maybe your cave is a season of unemployment, a prolonged illness, a stalled relationship, a dream deferred, or simply that overwhelming sense of not yet. It's easy to believe God has forgotten you here, that the darkness is a sign of his absence. But Scripture and David's life tell us a different story. It is precisely in these vulnerable, uncomfortable, unseen spaces that God does his deepest work. He forges character in the fire of waiting. He proves his faithfulness not by magically removing the cave, but by being your refuge within it. Can you pause for a moment, right where you are, and try to see your waiting place, whatever form it takes, not just as a holding pattern or a punishment, but as a crucible, a holy, albeit painful, process where God is refining you, where he is proving himself as your safe place when nothing else is. It's in the cave that the promise feels like a distant star, but God's presence is as near as your own breath. True safety isn't the absence of the cave, it's the presence of God within it. What if the darkness isn't a void, but simply the quiet room where God is preparing you for the light. The upper room was not a place of triumph yet, but a crucible of fragile hope. You can almost see them there, huddled together, eyes still red from weeping, hearts still reeling from the whirlwind. Their world had shattered on a cross, been miraculously pieced back together in an empty tomb, and now, incredibly, he was gone again, lifted into the clouds. They were adrift, anchored only by a command. Wait in Jerusalem for the promise of the Father. Imagine the silence that often settled between their whispered prayers. The air thick with uncertainty. The city outside bustling with life that felt alien to their raw grief and nascent faith. They didn't have a timeline, no detailed plan of action, just the instruction to wait. Anxiety must have gnawed at the edges of their resolve. How long? What exactly will happen? Are we safe? They were just ordinary people, wrestling with extraordinary circumstances, clinging to the last words of the one they loved. This wasn't a passive waiting, like sitting idle on a park bench. It was an active posture of obedience. They gathered, they prayed, they reflected. They were preparing their hearts, clearing the ground for something they couldn't yet comprehend, but knew would change everything. They were in a season of unseen labor, tending to their faith in the quiet, expectant space before the storm of the Spirit would descend and launch them into the world. Their waiting was a form of worship, a declaration that they trusted the commander, even when the next orders felt impossibly vague. Perhaps you find yourself in your own kind of upper room right now, a place of waiting after a significant loss or before a daunting unknown. The silence feels heavy, and the way forward isn't clear. You've been told to wait, to trust, but the how and when are shrouded in mist. It's a vulnerable place to be, stripped of control, reliant entirely on a promise. But like those disciples, your waiting doesn't have to be empty. It can be filled with focused prayer, with gathering, even virtually, with others who understand the posture of expectancy, with preparing your heart. God often calls us to these seasons of stillness, not to abandon us, but to ready us for the powerful work He is about to do in and through us. Are you allowing this season to be a preparation or just a pause? Are you waiting with anticipation, trusting the promise, even in the quiet of your own unknown? Are you gathering your scattered thoughts, your anxieties, your hopes, and presenting them in that upper room of faith, just like they did? You sit in the stillness, the quiet pressing in. You asked, you waited, you hoped, and the days unfolded, one after another, with no visible change, no grand breakthrough, no sudden open door. The question rises unbidden from the depths, a whisper that echoes in the empty spaces. What is God doing here? It feels like nothing, like time is suspended, like your life is on hold, like your prayers dissolved into the air without reaching their destination. This season of waiting feels less like fertile ground and more like barren desert, desolate, silent, and devoid of movement. But in God's economy, stillness is rarely emptiness. Think of the tiny seed dropped into the dark, silent earth. From the surface, nothing suggests life. No sprout breaks the soil. No leaves unfurl to the sun. Yet deep beneath the surface, vital, unseen work is happening. The seed is breaking down, absorbing moisture, gathering strength for the explosive push upwards. In your season of delay, God is often doing that same deep, crucial work within you and around you. This stillness isn't stagnant. It's preparation. It's cultivation. He might be patiently developing virtues within you that only the slow grind of perseverance can forge. Perhaps it's patience itself, the quiet strength to endure, or humility as your own plans are stripped away, leaving only dependence on Him. Maybe this season is building a deeper resilience, a faith that isn't shaken by external circumstances, but rooted in the unseen King. He is working, not always in the ways you expect, but always with divine purpose. He might be weaving protection around you from dangers you cannot perceive, or rerouting your steps toward a path more perfectly aligned with His will, a path you would never have chosen or even seen from where you stood before. He is orchestrating details behind the scenes, connecting dots, aligning circumstances, preparing the ground for what is to come, even if those intricate workings remain hidden from your immediate sight. Your waiting is not a void. It is filled with the sacred, often hidden, activity of the divine. This season is more than just waiting for something to happen. It is an invitation to trust in someone who is always happening, always acting, always working. It's an invitation to trust not just what God will eventually do, but who He is, the active, loving, sovereign Creator who is ceaselessly at work, even when His hand is unseen, even when His voice feels silent. He moves in the stillness just as powerfully as in the storm. The greatest growth can often occur in the most hidden seasons. Can you look at the quiet, the delay, the perceived inactivity, and trust that He is working, diligently, purposefully, lovingly, even when you cannot see a single thing? Can you trust the gardener when you only see the soil? You sit in the silence, the world rushing by outside your window, yet you feel utterly still. You've prayed, you've sought counsel, you've tried to force a door open or find a path forward, but everything feels frozen. This isn't a season you chose. It feels more like a sentence, a holding pattern in the spiritual skies where the signal seems weak and the destination is hidden in the clouds. You wonder if something is wrong with you, if you've somehow missed the turn, or if God has simply forgotten you here in the quiet. The impatience gnaws, a dull ache of wanting life to move, to see progress, to know what's next. This unexpected stillness can feel like a void, a place of lack, maybe even a punishment. You see others moving forward, reaching milestones, living out chapters you feel stuck waiting for, and the silence around you seems to amplify the comparison, feeding the subtle lie that your pause means you're less favored, less seen, less loved. But consider the pause in music. It's not a mistake. It's not the absence of sound for no reason. A skilled composer understands its power. A rest in a symphony isn't mere silence. It's a deliberate breath. It builds tension, allows the previous notes to resonate, prepares the listener for the harmony or melody that is yet to come. Without the pause, the music would be a chaotic, relentless stream of sound, lacking definition, power, and emotional depth. The notes get the glory, yes, but the rests give them meaning. Your season of waiting, this unwanted stillness you find yourself in, might just be God's divinely orchestrated pause. It's not the absence of God's work. It's a different kind of work, a deeper, quieter kind. It might be a necessary time for recalibration, for adjusting your internal compass, because the direction you thought you were going wasn't the best path, or perhaps not His path at all. It can be a time for learning to listen more intently, not just for booming commands, but for the gentle whisper in the stillness. Maybe the noise of activity had drowned out his subtle guidance, and the pause is his way of turning down the volume on the world, so you can finally hear the quiet frequency of his spirit. Often, this pause is a time for shedding burdens you didn't even realize you were carrying. Like a traveler stopping by a river to lighten their load, this stillness can reveal the heavy anxieties, the expectations of others, the self-imposed pressures, and the sheer exhaustion that relentless forward movement had masked. It might be a necessary rest before a demanding season God knows is coming, a time to replenish your reserves, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally. Just as a tree strengthens its roots underground before facing the storms of winter, your pause could be the hidden season where your roots of faith grow deeper, anchoring you firmly in His promises before the winds of trials blow. It is a space designed to realign your heart's desires with His. When the noise stops, you might finally hear the quiet longings God placed within you, desires that were perhaps buried under the world's definitions of success or urgency. The pause prevents you from rushing ahead in your own strength, stumbling into choices born of impatience rather than divine timing. It keeps you from taking a path that looks appealing, maybe even good by worldly standards, but isn't His best, safest, or most fruitful path for you. It forces you to slow down, to step off the treadmill of striving, and to simply be. It calls you to stillness so you can truly know that He is God. Psalm 46:10. He doesn't need your frantic activity to be God. He is God even and especially in the stillness. The purpose of the pause is often less about getting something, that job, that relationship, that resolution you crave, and more about becoming someone. It's about the internal transformation God is working in you when the external circumstances are frozen. It's about cultivating patience when you feel impatient, trust when you feel anxious, resilience when you feel stuck. It's about learning to find contentment in Him alone, not in forward momentum or achieved goals. The wilderness was a pause for Israel, a time meant to teach them dependence. The tomb was a pause for Jesus, a seeming end that was the necessary stillness before the ultimate resurrection power. Your pause is a sacred space, even if it feels like an empty one. It is not a void in your story. It is a vital chapter written by the master author. He is shaping you in the quiet, molding your character, refining your faith, preparing you in ways you cannot yet see. What might God be trying to cultivate in you during this intentional pause? What subtle strength, what hidden grace, what deeper knowing of Him is being formed in the stillness? Lean into the pause, not with resignation, but with curious surrender. Trust that the composer knows the purpose of the rest. The days blur into weeks, sometimes months, perhaps even years. You pray, you wait, you watch the horizon, but the breakthrough, the answer, the shift you yearn for seems perpetually out of reach. It feels like a pause button has been pressed on your life, a frustrating stillness where nothing visible is changing, nothing is growing upwards. You wonder, is God even moving? Is anything happening at all in this season of waiting? The silence can feel like indifference, the lack of progress like abandonment. Doubt whispers that maybe you missed the sign, maybe your faith wasn't strong enough, maybe God simply isn't interested in this particular desire of your heart. It's a quiet, gnawing anxiety that settles in the stillness, a fear that your efforts are futile, your prayers are hitting a ceiling, and your life is simply stuck. But consider a mighty oak tree. You see the immense trunk, the sprawling branches reaching for the sky, the leafy canopy providing shade and shelter. That is the visible triumph. Yet the true strength, the anchor that allows it to defy gales and droughts, lies hidden deep beneath the Earth's surface. An intricate, complex root system reaches down, spreading wider than the branches above, drawing nourishment from unseen sources, clinging to the soil with tenacious grip. Seasons of waiting, those periods when you feel least productive, least growing upwards towards tangible success or outward fulfillment, are often God's profound seasons of root building. He isn't delaying you. He is strengthening you in ways you cannot see. While you perceive stagnation, He is actively working underground, establishing deeper foundations of faith, embedding resilience into your spirit, refining your character in the quiet furnace of patience. This unseen, often uncomfortable work is absolutely crucial. Without these deep roots, the towering structure you hope for would be easily toppled by the first strong wind of adversity. Without the inner strength, the spiritual resilience, the dependence on God, cultivated in the waiting, the very blessing or breakthrough you long for could actually overwhelm you, proving unsustainable because the foundation wasn't ready to bear its weight. This perspective shifts the waiting not from a frustrating empty void, but into a vital, active part of your spiritual formation. It's a paradox. The season of seeming inaction is perhaps God's most intense action within you. He is cultivating the soil of your soul, pruning away superficial expectations, watering the seed of your trust, allowing your spiritual roots to penetrate deeper into the eternal source of His grace and truth. His most important work in you might be happening precisely where no human eye can see, in the quiet, hidden places of your heart and spirit. It's in the wilderness experiences, the valleys of uncertainty, the long nights of unanswered questions, that the roots are forged in the dark earth of dependency on Him alone. Can you truly trust that while you are waiting, while you feel unseen and unproductive, God is diligently, perfectly, and powerfully building the inner strength you will absolutely need for what He has planned? Can you surrender the need for visible progress and trust the profound process happening in the unseen depths? The silence stretches, heavy with the weight of an unanswered prayer. You pleaded, you poured out your heart, you laid bare the desire that felt so right, so necessary. The door you saw, the path you longed to walk, it remains stubbornly closed. A no echoes, or perhaps a not yet that feels indistinguishable from a never. Your heart aches, confused, maybe even a little resentful. Didn't God promise good gifts to His children? Why then is this seemingly good thing being withheld? Here in the quiet ache of disappointment lies a truth often hidden, a grace often missed. Sometimes the door we desperately want opened is precisely the one God is closing or delaying, not out of withholding, but out of protection. We, standing at the threshold, see only the perceived opportunity shimmering in the immediate light, the potential for relief or joy or progress. But God sees the whole path unfolding, the hidden dangers lurking just beyond the door, the subtle snares disguised as blessings, the timing that isn't just off, but potentially harmful to you or others down the road. His not yet or not this is not a denial of good gifts. It is frequently a divine shield, a loving hand gently steering you away from unseen harm or guiding you through a season of waiting in the wilderness towards something far grander, far more aligned with His perfect purpose than you could ever imagine from your limited vantage point. This requires a profound, almost breathtaking level of trust, surrendering your limited vision, fixated only on the door before you, to His perfect foresight that spans eternity. It's believing that the closed door isn't a sign of your failure or God's indifference, but a demonstration of His active, protective love at work. This protection could be shielding you from a relationship that looked promising but would lead you astray, diverting you from a job opportunity that would slowly pull your heart away from Him, preventing a financial decision that seemed savvy but carried seeds of ruin, or simply delaying something because you or others involved aren't yet fully prepared for its weight or blessing. Can you, in the sting of disappointment, begin to see His not yet through the lens of His protective love? Can you find the quiet strength to believe that the hand that holds the blessing might also be the hand that holds you back, not to harm, but to save? It's a gentle paradox. Sometimes the greatest freedom is found not in getting what we want, but in trusting the One who knows what we truly need, even when that means waiting in the stillness of a closed door. It's not about forcing the lock, but about looking past the door frame to the hand that holds the keys, trusting that He leads you towards safety, even when it feels like you're standing still. The calendar page turns again, and still the silence is heavy. You sit in the quiet of your waiting, the ache of unanswered prayers a familiar companion. You've done everything you know to do, prayed, hoped, planned, prepared. Your heart cries out, "Why not now? Why isn't my breakthrough here? Am I overlooked in this long, slow season?" It feels deeply personal, this pause button on your life, this delay in your desired future. You wrestle with the fear that maybe you aren't ready, or worse, that God isn't ready for you. Anxiety whispers, what if this window closes? What if the opportunity passes you by while you're still here, standing still? It's easy to believe that your waiting is solely about your journey, a test or preparation just for you. But what if your story is intricately woven into countless others? What if God's timing isn't just about your piece of the puzzle being ready, but about orchestrating all the pieces so they click into place perfectly, simultaneously? Your waiting might be connected to the readiness of someone you haven't even met yet. The person who holds a key, the mentor who needs their own valley season to prepare them to guide you, the partner whose path is still winding towards yours. The resources required for your next step might be under construction in another corner of the world. A global shift, a local change, a simple alignment of unrelated events. All of these factors, seen and unseen, are turning gears in the divine clockwork. God's perfect timing is a masterclass in coordination, bringing together diverse lives, varied circumstances, and countless divine appointments. He doesn't operate on your personal timeline alone. He moves across the vast chessboard of humanity, positioning pieces for His grand, overarching purpose. Your personal delay might be someone else's necessary unfolding, and their journey might be the very thing that makes your blessing possible later on. It is in this stillness you feel forgotten, that you are perhaps most strategically positioned in His intricate design. Consider the possibility that your waiting is not a punishment or an oversight, but a vital part of a much larger, more beautiful tapestry God is weaving. His view is panoramic. He sees connections you cannot fathom, potential intersections years down the line. He is not just preparing you, he is preparing the world for your arrival in your next season. He is preparing the people who will be part of it, the resources that will sustain it, the circumstances that will align for its maximum impact and His ultimate glory. Your waiting feels like standing still, but in God's economy, it is often a strategic holding pattern, a deployment delay until the exact, perfect moment for launching. Can you surrender the urgency of your personal stopwatch to the infinite precision of His divine clock? Can you trust that the one who holds the stars in place is meticulously aligning every detail of your life, not in isolation, but in perfect harmony with His unfolding plan for everyone and everything involved? Your waiting season is not empty time. It is pregnant with potential, a necessary phase in God's interconnected masterpiece. Trust that He is working, not just on your piece, but on all the pieces, so that when your moment arrives, it is not just good, but perfect. You sit in the quiet, the clock ticking louder than usual. Days have stretched into weeks, weeks into months. The answer hasn't come. The door hasn't opened. The healing hasn't manifested. Every instinct screams, do something. Panic whispers, maybe nothing is happening. You look around, and it feels like everyone else is moving, achieving, arriving, while you are stuck in this desolate plain of waiting. It feels like passive inactivity, a holding pattern you never signed up for. The weight settles in your chest. Is this all there is? Just enduring? But what if waiting isn't a void of inaction, but one of the most profound spiritual actions you can undertake? It's not doing nothing. It's actively choosing to believe when your feelings betray you, when circumstances mock your hope. It's the daily, sometimes hourly, decision to lay down your frantic plans and gnawing anxieties at the foot of the cross. This waiting is a battlefield fought in the depths of your soul, a war against doubt with the weapon of quiet trust. It's leaning into God's presence in the uncertainty, finding your true security not in the arrival, but in the unchanging character of the one who already holds the finish line. It's the wilderness where your faith muscle is stretched and strengthened, learning to rely on the manna of His daily grace rather than the stored-up provisions you desperately wish you had. It's cultivating hope like a delicate sprout in dry ground, watering it with the truth of His promises. This is not gritting your teeth endurance. This is learning to breathe in the finished work of Christ, allowing His peace, the peace that transcends understanding, to stand guard over your heart and mind. Just as Philippians 4:6-7 promises. It's a paradox. You are doing nothing outwardly, yet fighting the greatest fight inwardly, the fight to trust. Can you shift your gaze today? From the locked door to the faithful keeper of the keys? From the empty space to the full presence beside you? From passive endurance to active, moment-by-moment trust? What would it look like to surrender one anxiety right now, offering it up like incense? What promise of God feels most distant, yet most necessary to cling to in this wait? This sacred stillness is preparing you, refining you, aligning you. Don't despise the waiting. It is holy ground. It is where God often does His deepest, quietest work. Rest not in the outcome, but in Him. Trust that even here, especially here, He is good and He is working. The breath catches in your throat. Another day unfolds, marked not by breakthrough, but by the relentless tick of the clock measuring the wait. Your mind, a relentless architect of anxiety, builds elaborate structures of what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, each one heavier than the last. It's easy to believe that life is paused, a holding pattern until the desired outcome arrives. The vibrant colors of the present moment seem muted, hidden behind the gray filter of future uncertainty. You feel trapped in this in-between space where the peace God promises feels like a distant shore you can't reach. The beauty of today, the sun through the window, the quiet hum of life outside, the simple grace of breath, is overshadowed by the clamor in your head. This season of waiting is your life right now, but it often feels like a delay, a punishment, anything but the fullness God intends, even in the stillness. The ache of wanting to know, of needing a sign, can consume you. It's like walking through a desert, thirsty not just for water, but for a clear path forward, for the end of the journey to appear on the horizon. But God meets us not just at the destination, but in the dust of the road itself. His truth is not a future promise whispered faintly from tomorrow, but a present reality breathed into the air you are breathing now. He is not just the God of the mountaintop or the promised land. He is Emmanuel, God with us. In the valley, in the wilderness, in the quiet, frustrating pause. Finding peace isn't about having the map to tomorrow. It's about trusting the one who designed the landscape of today. It's realizing that His grace is sufficient for this moment, His strength made perfect in this weakness, His presence a sanctuary right now. You don't need to see the end of the story to trust the author. To anchor yourself in this turbulent present requires a conscious, courageous act of faith. It is choosing contentment, not as a resignation to unwanted circumstances, but as a radical declaration that God is enough today. It's a refusal to let the anxiety of the future steal the small graces scattered like hidden manna along your path. It's the quiet strength found in stillness, the surprising freedom in relinquishing control over what lies ahead. Look around you, not with the eyes of worry, but with the eyes of faith. What small blessing is here? A moment of unexpected calm? The comfort of a single verse? The resilience you find within yourself? These aren't trivial distractions. They are God's gentle invitations back into the present. They are the quiet whispers of His presence, reminding you that waiting isn't emptiness, but a different kind of fullness, the fullness of His unwavering presence in the now. Choose to be present, not as a passive bystander to a life on hold, but as an active participant in the unfolding grace of today. Trust that God is working, even when you see no movement. He is providing, even when the future feels lean. His peace is available, not when the wait is over, but when you choose to believe He is sufficient for you in this very moment. You sit again in the quiet room, the silence pressing in like a physical weight. The prayers feel thin, carried away by a wind that never brings the answer back. Maybe you look at your circumstances, the locked doors, the unchanging landscape, the promises that seem perpetually deferred. And a question whispers like dust in the corner. Is God still working? Is He even there? You feel forgotten, left on a shelf while the world moves on, while others receive their breakthroughs. This waiting isn't just still. It feels stagnant, barren, like a riverbed baked dry under a relentless sun. Doubt, a persistent weed, tries to take root in the cracks of your weary heart. You look for grand signs, for dramatic interventions, but see only the same familiar struggle day after day. But the truth, whispered not in the wind, but in the bedrock of reality, is this: even in the deepest silence, even in the longest delay, even when the feeling of being forgotten is most acute, God is still working. His power does not wane, does not pause, does not falter just because your waiting stretches on. Think of the universe He upholds with a mere word, the galaxies spinning in perfect order, the earth revolving on its axis, the tides obeying His command. That same immense power, that same ceaseless energy is at work in your life right now. He is moving in the hearts of people you haven't even met, orchestrating circumstances far beyond your view, weaving a tapestry whose pattern you cannot yet perceive. And more intimately, He is completing the good work He began in you. Philippians 1:6 doesn't say He might complete it, or He'll complete it if you try hard enough. It declares with absolute certainty that He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. The work of sanctification, the holy process of making you more like Him, refining your character in the fire of patience and trust. This is a work that continues ceaselessly, often most intensely in the hidden seasons of waiting. The work of bringing about His perfect will in your life, of preparing you and the circumstances for the fulfillment of His promises. This too is ongoing, relentless, and unstoppable. Your job in this sacred, sometimes painful waiting isn't to frantically make things happen, to batter down doors that aren't meant to open, or to force a timeline that isn't His. It is to remain faithful in the quiet, to cultivate a heart that trusts His process, even when it makes no sense, and to posture yourself in readiness for when He says, "Now." This waiting is not passive resignation. It is active partnership, aligning your restless heart with His perfect peace, anchoring your soul in the absolute assurance of His unwavering power. Can you, just for this moment, breathe and rest in the profound knowledge that His work on your behalf is ongoing, powerful, and utterly unstoppable? He is not waiting for you to be ready. He is making you ready as He works. Welcome to today's devotional message, grounded in the truth of God's unwavering faithfulness for the Trusting God Always community. You prayed, you fasted, you waited, and still, silence. Maybe this message is the sign you didn't know you needed. Perhaps your heart echoes the ancient cry, "How long, O Lord?" You feel the weight of unanswered questions pressing down, like desert heat on weary shoulders. Doubt whispers its insidious lies, suggesting your faith isn't strong enough, your prayer not fervent enough, or worse, that God simply isn't listening. You stand at the edge of a wilderness you didn't choose, looking out at a future veiled in mist, and the path ahead seems utterly unclear. This space of uncertainty, it's fertile ground for fear, for anxiety to take root like stubborn weeds. It's where the mind races with what-ifs and the spirit feels adrift, like a ship without an anchor, in a restless sea. But what if this wilderness, this season of waiting, isn't a sign of God's absence, but His careful cultivation? What if the silence isn't neglect, but the quiet necessary for something profound to grow within you, something resilient, deeply rooted, and beautiful? Every soul at some point walks through such a season. It is universal to the human experience and deeply personal to your faith journey. We see it in the stories woven throughout Scripture. Abraham waiting for Isaac, Joseph waiting in prison, the Israelites waiting 40 years in the wilderness, the disciples waiting in the upper room. Their stories remind us that waiting is not passive emptiness. It is an active posture of hope, a crucible where faith is tested and refined like precious metal in fire. Here, in this space of not yet, God is doing a work that rushing could never accomplish. He is teaching patience, not as a frustrating delay, but as a divine discipline that settles the anxious heart and stills the frantic mind. He is cultivating perseverance, the quiet strength that refuses to buckle under the strain, the persistent hope that anchors the soul when the world feels unstable. And most critically, He is deepening dependence. When you cannot see the way, when your own strength fails, you learn to lean completely, utterly on His. This dependence is not weakness. It is the truest strength, for it connects you directly to the infinite power and wisdom of the Creator. Consider the paradox. You gain strength not by striving harder in the dark, but by surrendering your limited vision to His infinite sight. You find control, not in manipulating circumstances, but in releasing control to the One who holds all things in His hands. This journey is not about figuring it all out before you move. It's about trusting the guide even when the fog is thick. It's about knowing that His promise is more real than your present fear, that His faithfulness is the bedrock beneath the shifting sands of your circumstances. If these words meet you right where you are, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us reach more souls who need God's comfort and the anchor of His truth in their seasons of uncertainty. Your simple click can be the lifeline someone else needs today. We are a community learning to trust, day by day, step by step, waiting season by waiting season. Comment below with your favorite Bible promise, or the one you're still holding on to in the waiting. Let's share the promises that sustain us, reminding each other that we do not wait alone. Let's begin, and let His word breathe new life into yours. You sit in the silence, wondering if your prayer was even heard. The wind taps the window, like God's whisper, waiting for your stillness. You've been here before, haven't you? In the quiet ache of a deferred hope, the heavy cloak of unanswered questions, the prolonged uncertainty that feels less like waiting and more like being forgotten. This season, stretching out like a desolate landscape, feels harsh. It's a refining fire, consuming the dross of your self-sufficiency, burning away the illusion of control you once held so tightly. You feel the heat, sometimes intense, sometimes a low, persistent simmer, and you wonder if you'll emerge intact. But this fire isn't meant to destroy you, it's meant to forge you. Seasons of waiting are God's workshops for building spiritual resilience. They teach you patience, not just as a virtue to be admired from afar, but as a muscle trained through long exertion. They cultivate perseverance, the quiet determination that whispers, "I will not give up," even when every outward sign screams defeat. And in ways that immediate answers could never achieve, these seasons deepen your dependence on God. You reach for Him not as a last resort, but as your only true source, the wellspring in the desert. You learn that strength isn't the absence of struggle, but the presence of God in the midst of it. Think of the journey through the wilderness. It wasn't a direct route to the promised land. It was 40 years of wandering, of learning to trust daily manna, daily guidance, daily miracles. They learned God's faithfulness wasn't dependent on their comfort or their understanding, but on His unchanging nature. They stumbled, they complained, they doubted, yet He remained faithful. Like them, you are learning that God's faithfulness is not contingent on your circumstances changing, but is a constant reality you can cling to. He is faithful, whether the answer is yes, no, or wait. He is the steady hand on the rudder through the storm, even when you feel tossed by the waves. When you finally walk through a long period of uncertainty and emerge on the other side, and you will emerge, you carry something invaluable. You carry a strength forged in the fire, a resilience that understands the weight of time and the power of hope. You carry a testimony whispered in the quiet nights, a story of how God met you when you felt most lost, most unseen. You carry a depth of faith that cannot be earned any other way, a knowing in your soul that God is good, even when life is hard. This depth isn't theoretical, it's lived, breathed, inscribed onto your very being. It's the difference between believing in a distant God and walking hand in hand with an ever-present Father. This resilience isn't just for you. It's a lamp lit in the darkness, preparing you to encourage others who are walking through their own seasons of waiting. You become a voice of hope, not from a place of effortless victory, but from the trenches of experience. You understand the ache, the doubt, the weariness. You can offer a listening ear, a knowing glance, a simple phrase like, "Hold on, He is faithful," with an authority that comes only from having held on yourself. Your scars become markers of His grace, pointing others to the One who healed and strengthened you. Your waiting season becomes a well from which others can draw courage. The waiting is shaping you, even when you feel stagnant. It is honing your character, refining your perspective, stripping away layers that hinder your growth. You are becoming stronger, not just in enduring hardship, but in resting in His presence. You are becoming more compassionate, having walked the lonely road yourself. You are becoming more Christ-like, learning the posture of patient submission to the Father's will. This season, however difficult, is equipping you for whatever comes next, for the next step, the next challenge, the next ministry opportunity. It is preparing you to steward the blessings He will bring, with a heart deeply rooted in Him. What strength have you already gained in this season that you might not recognize? Look closely. It's there, hidden in the quiet perseverance, the unexpected peace, the small moments when you chose to trust Him again. It is a quiet miracle unfolded in the stillness of your soul. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender. A gentle reminder that even the longest day gives way to rest. You've walked through the season, felt the fire, and learned the resilience that only waiting can cultivate. You stand a little taller now, not because the path ahead is clear, but because the one behind you testifies to His steady presence. The timeless truth echoes in your heart. God's love is not transactional. His faithfulness is not conditional on your performance or the immediate granting of your desires. He simply is faithful, yesterday, today, and forever. His nature is your guarantee, His character your bedrock. Walking in trust isn't about seeing the finish line. It's about keeping your eyes fixed on the one walking with you, step by step, through the mist and the sunshine. It's acknowledging the fear, the doubt, the ache, but choosing to place a deeper faith in His promise than in your present circumstance. It's the quiet surrender that says, I don't understand, but I trust you. This trust is a living thing, nourished daily by His Word, strengthened by moments of honest prayer, and proven real in the crucible of life. It's not a blind leap into nothingness, but a grounded reliance on the one who has proven himself trustworthy time and time again, in your life and throughout history. God turns hidden seasons, the quiet waits, the unseen struggles, the moments you felt forgotten, into holy stories. Your season of waiting is not wasted time. It is sacred space where His grace is at work, chiseling, shaping, preparing you for a future you cannot yet imagine. The strength you've gained, the compassion you've cultivated, the dependence you've deepened, these are the treasures mined in the darkness. These are the threads He weaves into the tapestry of your life, creating a masterpiece that reflects His glory. You are not merely enduring, you are being equipped. You are not forgotten, you are being fashioned. Look back even just to the beginning of this message, or further, into the long road of your faith journey. See how far you've come, not by your own might, but by His grace carrying you. See the seeds of resilience that have taken root in the dry ground. Trust that the one who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion. Trust that every season has its divine purpose. They didn't see the end, but they trusted the author, and that was enough. And so, you return to the window perhaps, or simply sit quietly in your space. The circumstances might not have changed. The answer might not have arrived. The silence might still feel vast, like an endless desert stretching before you. The knot of anxiety in your stomach might still pull tight when you think of the future, whispering doubts like dry wind through brittle branches. You feel the ache of longing, the heavy weight of what is not yet, the constant, quiet pressure of unanswered prayers hanging in the air. It feels vulnerable, exposed, like standing in a storm with no shelter in sight. You've poured out your heart, laid bare your deepest needs, perhaps even wrestled with God like Jacob at the ford. And yet, the dawn has not yet broken fully over your situation. But something within you has shifted, something subtle yet profound, born not of resolution, but of release. You begin to understand that waiting is not an absence of God, but often a profound invitation into a deeper awareness of His presence in the wait. He is not delayed. He is perfectly on time, working in ways you couldn't comprehend, moving mountains you cannot see, stirring the waters and preparing you and the circumstances for a reveal that will declare His glory in a way you never could have orchestrated. The goal isn't just the end of the waiting, the arrival of the desired outcome, but the person you become while you're walking through it, more patient, more trusting, more deeply rooted in Him. Like a tree planted by rivers of water, whose leaf does not wither. You are learning to find your security, not in the fleeting outcome, which can always change, but in the unchanging, unshakable character of the one who holds all outcomes in His hands, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. His love is not conditional on your timeline or your understanding. It does not diminish in the silence or falter in the face of your fear. He is with you now, in the quiet room, in the uncertainty that swirls, in the ache of longing that settles deep in your bones. He is sustaining you, strengthening you, and guiding you with unseen hands, like oil being poured gently into the lamp of your spirit, keeping the flame of hope flickering, even in the darkest night. The waiting room is not a place of abandonment, a wilderness where you are left to fend for yourself, but a sacred space where God does His most intimate, foundational work in our souls, chiseling away at the old self, forging resilience, etching promises onto the tablet of your heart. It is a time of deep cultivation, where the tiny mustard seed of faith is nurtured in the hidden soil of your spirit, ready to burst forth into something vast and life-giving. So breathe. Release the white-knuckled grip of urgency, the desperate need to understand every single step, the gnawing fear of being forgotten in the shuffle of life. He sees you. He knows the burdens you carry, the silent tears you weep, the prayers whispered on the wind. He cares more deeply than you can possibly imagine. His plans for you are good, filled with hope and a future, not for harm, but for peace, for a flourishing you cannot yet perceive. Jeremiah 29:11. Trust the perfect timing of the one who loves you perfectly, who is the very definition of faithfulness. Even in the silence that stretches like an endless canvas, His presence sings over you, a lullaby of promise, a symphony of peace, if only you quiet your own noise enough to hear it. This hidden season is not a delay. It is the holy ground where God writes His most powerful stories, transforming the waiting into a testament of His grace. They didn't see the end. They trusted the author, and that was enough.